Hello YouTube, it's Alec here with Yu-Gi-Oh! Underground. I haven't posted in a while due to my own moving in and adjusting to university life, but I'm here today, and since my last video, a lot of things have changed. We've had our new ban list, we've had our YCS Toronto, and while I would like to make a video addressing each of those, at the end of the day, I think that it's pretty defined that you guys have your own opinions about it, and we have our opinions about it, and all the majority of the YouTube world, including Tyler Poe on this channel, all had valuable insight on that I'm not just going to brush over and repeat because it'd be wasting your time. But what I do want to talk about that I feel hasn't been addressed very much is the importance of a new, I guess I wouldn't call it a new type of card, but a new outlook on this type of card from a comparative standpoint. And the type of card I'm discussing is generic draw cards. Obviously, Upstart Goblin has been a personal favorite of mine, just going into this new format, because it's all in like this idea that when you think about it, there's not really 40 cards worth running anymore. And I say that as a joke, but there is seriousness behind it, because when you think of things like Compulse and Bottomless and Torrential and all your big trap cards getting hit to one, it's a lot less likely you're going to draw those power trap cards in order to hold your opponent's plays off at bay, which means that the importance of drawing into your own plays, sorry, I have the hiccups, becomes all the more important. And what I mean by that is, say you're playing a rogue deck this format, and everything's pretty much rogue right now, but I'm going on the assumption that Dragon Rulers are the best deck, because I think from YCS Toronto we can kind of see that direction's where things are going, because apparently in a format where Monster Reborn is banned, dragons that come out of the graveyard by themselves are pretty good, I heard. And the weakness of the new Dragon deck, which the old Dragon deck didn't experience, is of course the lack of the babies. Now, what did the babies give to the Dragon deck? And that was the first turn consistent Drago Sacks, plus drawing cards with Rejuve. The new Dragon deck often has to slow roll with Card Trooper, have a turn of setting up with 7-star Sword, and just various other effects to get them into a position where they can make their big push, which means rogue decks like Constellars and Black Wings and Evil Swarms, that's the other big one, all have this key advantage that their first turn plays are much more like what I said, their first turn plays. They're not, we have to slow roll into a setup turn 1, and then turn 2 make it into a slow roll play. And the importance of your immediate first turn play when you're playing against a deck that can infinitely out-resource you is extremely important. That's why I think Upstart Goblin is going to see a ton of play this format. Even in Patrick Hoban's Dragon deck, you saw Upstart Goblin seeing an increased amount of play, as well as another sneaky card that is also relevant to the generic draw card type card, Reckless Greed, where you see players going to events and they know they have an offensive deck that takes a little bit slower to set up, and so they're going to try to, even though they still have to take that time to set up, they want to go off as hard as they can, and they're going to use multiple Reckless Greeds and multiple Upstart Goblins and generic draw cards to ensure that their push is going to be as big as it can possibly get in this format, because they also do that in the knowledge that there are not a ton of traps to stop them right now at this point in time, due to the limiting of Torrential, Compulse, etc., etc. And they also have to use the slight bit of advantage produced by a Reckless Greed in order to push through the fact that they don't have heavy, and they have to push through every back row card by card, which isn't so terrible because the dragons come out of the graveyard, but it's still something that they have to do in order to achieve their win condition. And I think Reckless Greed is part of the reason that Patrick Hoban saw the success he did, and I think it might continue to be a popular choice amidst Dragon players in this new format. Keeping on the topic of generic draw cards, we have Maxi, which I think is going to be an extremely important hand trap this format, because it's hard to go minus with Maxi because every deck usually will special summon once or twice to get a playoff. Blackwings are a bit hard. You have to hit a Shura, or if you can anticipate them dropping a Bora after their first normal summon, you can drop a Maxi and get a draw there. Obviously, anytime you're going second and they're playing Evil Swarms, Constellars, anything to make a first turn play, you can drop a Maxi and at least get a card into your deck, because like I said, there's not 40 of the greatest cards worth running, so you want to use generic draw cards in this format in order to get to the cards you want to go off in your deck, because those are the valuable cards to you right now, not your power traps necessarily, because you only get one of each. And so while those power traps are important, you're not going to get to them as consistently, and therefore you're not going to be able to use them to leverage the game as often. So what do you use to leverage the game instead of those power traps? Well, you have to use your deck's own plays and combos. And securing those plays and combos is what's going to see a rise in these generic draw cards. Maybe even this one. Probably not, though. You should try it. Tech 1. You can't play more than one of this, because if you draw a Shard of Greed off a Shard of Greed, you just wasted your time. But, sorry, I had to get a Shard of Greed cameo in there. But, yeah, that really is the point of this video, is no matter what you're building, if you're building any sort of deck to compete with the meta, I would strongly encourage the use of Upstart Goblin and Maxi in this format due to the quickness they add to the deck and the ability they give you to get into plays, your deck's own plays, that are going to be big enough to mitigate the loss of all your power traps. And if you're playing particularly aggressive decks, watch out for Maxi, because I think a lot of people are going to be playing it, especially with the guy who top forward with Blackwings and a lot of other rogue decks that show rogue. I say rogue, it's not really that rogue, but all the non-Dragon Ruler decks and a lot of the Dragon Ruler decks who showed up at Toronto were packing multiple copies of Maxi, and I think that's a trend we're only going to see continue for the rest of the format. And of course, if you're playing an aggressive deck, you might want to look into Reckless Greed. I know Patrick Hoban and one of his fake ban lists wanted the card limited. I didn't really see what's so OP about it, but I do understand that it does give you an advantage when pushing through multiple sets that your opponent might have, because you get that little burst of resources, especially if you have two and you don't really go minus off of it. But that little burst of resources to force through the back row, get your setup, and setups are going to be really big this format, because there's not heavy storm to just break through a really well set up field. And yeah, that is really the conclusion of today's video. I hope you took something away from it, and definitely be looking towards draw cards in this new format. So that concludes my arguments, and I will be signing off. Thanks, guys.